Welcome to Playing Above the Line, where we interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and community activists to get their thoughts and perspectives on leadership. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Aviso Group, a business consulting and accounting firm focused on preparing clients for the future through innovation and positive growth. Welcome to Playing Above the Line. I'm Alan, your host, and we are coming to you again the second week in a row from the campus of Coastal Alabama in Fairhope, and we are thankful for these guys opening up this great studio to us. And we hope you listened to the episode last week. It was our first time broadcasting, and I could actually hear a difference in the quality of the audio, and that's a good thing. So we appreciate them allowing us to do this. Our guest today is Mr. Ormand Thompson, and he is the president of Thomas Hospital here in Baldwin County. And Mr. Thompson, thanks for joining us.
Sure, glad to be here. It is a very nice studio. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even though we made you walk up 3 flights of stairs, we're going to find an elevator in this place at some point. But Carrie and I had a little time to recover from the trip upstairs, and we hope you have too.
Yeah,
anyway.
I think the 20 minutes in advance of this starting, right. I caught my breath finally. Right. Thank you. It's easier going down.
Right. So the president of Thomas Hospital, and so we will obviously talk about COVID and that impact, because that's been a huge impact, I know, on you and what you do on a day-to-day basis. But talk to me a little bit about the journey. I mean, what's your background? How did you become involved in healthcare? Has it been something you've always done, interested in? How did you get to where you are?
Yeah, so I grew up here in Fairhope and finished at Fairhope High School, went to South Alabama, finished at South Alabama, and really thought that as I finished South Alabama in the late 80s, I thought, really maybe want to be a drug rep. I knew I had some friends that were drug reps, and I thought, that looks like a great job. I need some healthcare experience. So I applied for a job at Mobile Infirmary as a director of patient transportation. It was a management position. I never managed anybody in my life. But I thought I'll get this healthcare experience and do this for a while, and then I'll go be a drug rep, and it'll be a great career. And so I get hired. I mean, it was really kind of a miracle. I've never managed anybody, had a department of about 50 people, and they called me back and said, hey, we've chosen you for the job and be here. It was November 11th of 91, so it's been 29 years.
Okay.
So I went in, started working in this department, had people calling me in leadership roles in the hospital saying, hey, my name is so-and-so. This is how I help you. If you need anything, please call me. Hey, if I can do anything for you, let me know. And got these calls, and I thought, man, I've never worked anywhere like this. It's fantastic. It just was a great place to work, great family environment. I really enjoyed healthcare. I really enjoyed working with people, and that was kind of the feeling I got from everybody in the organization. We're all here to do a job together. And never went back and looked for a drug rep job, and it's been 29 years later, and have done a lot of different things with the infirmary in 29 years, from office management of physician offices to hospital management to running several hospitals for the infirmary. And it's just been a great journey. I feel very fortunate to have the opportunity to do that, work with some great people over the years.
Yeah. That's a very cool story. So let me kind of backdoor into a question I typically just ask straight away. But so look back 29 years to 1991. You're a new manager at the infirmary. Can you remember what your perception and thoughts about leadership were then versus what they are now? I mean, what did you think a leader was whenever you walked into the door on November 11th, that first day, and had 50 people to lead?
I don't know that some of those things are ever, I think they're inherent in you and how you want to work with people and how you want to treat people. All I could think about was I want to treat people like I'd want to be treated. I'd worked enough jobs, probably from the time I was 12, I'd worked enough jobs to kind of know what it was like to work for people and work with people. And I really thought, I want to be the kind of person that would try to be fair, try to be a good communicator, and try to be accessible. I always felt like it was very important to be accessible and be available if people wanted to talk or had something they want to talk about. So even thinking back to that time, it was an open door. It was a big department. My office was right in the middle of the department, so it was easy access in there, and just really wanted to be available. And then also just support people. Mm-hmm. I felt like that. And as I do today, my role is to be a resource for people and provide support and a sounding board to try to get us where we want to go from a goal perspective and outcome perspective.
Well, accessibility, and you actually listed that as one of the traits you thought was important. You thought it was important enough to write it down. I don't know that we've really ever had anybody to say that, accessibility. I mean, maybe, but it's been a long time if we have. So what about being open and accessible to people do you think works, and why is it so important to people to be able to come and talk to their leaders openly?
Well, I think it builds trust. My experience has been people really don't abuse it. They realize that you've got a lot to do as well, but when it's important enough and they need you, then you need to make yourself available within reason to provide them that, either to let them bounce things off of you or share ideas or just vent about something. I mean, I've told some of my leaders in the past, if you want to come in here and close the door and scream and yell, it's the best place to do it, and then let's go out and go fix what we got to fix. But and once again, I think it's about being treated like you want to be treated. And I'm fortunate that I work with leaders. Mark Nix, our president and CEO. I mean, he's available. If I've got something that's critical enough, I know he's busy, but he always makes a point to make sure that he gets response back in time so I can make a decision on something or do what I need to do with it. So I think that once again, it's just about treating people like you want to be treated.
Yeah. Well, it gets back to relationships. I mean, that's the word that keeps coming up and that I think is very important. You also mentioned empathy. The people that you're leading have to believe that you're kind of walking with them in their shoes through whatever they're going through, right?
Yeah.
That helps.
Seeing it from their perspective, people have challenges. They've also got expectations about where they want to go, and trying to see it from their perspective. And if you don't think that you can get them where they want to go, you need to be honest about that as well. So I think communicating that and letting them know that this is realistically what we're going to be able to do, and trying to work through that with them. But hopefully both of you get to a point that they may not be happy with it, but they understand why the decision was made about things. But clearly seeing some of the challenges. You talked about COVID, and it's been a very, very challenging year. We've got a fantastic team at Thomas, fantastic medical staff, and just very empathetic for some of the things that they go through on a daily basis. And so trying to be available and astute enough to make sure we're providing them the resources they need so they feel like they've got support they need. Yeah.
So let's go back 8 months now, I guess, maybe to February, March, when this whole COVID thing first started kind of to explode. It does. It seems like 8 years and not 8 months. But
I think people are just tired of talking about it, but it's very prevalent.
It is. And believe me, look, I wish that, I hope, and we're all going to get there one day when we don't have to talk to our guests about COVID, but it really is something that's just impacted everybody in really every area of their life, right? I mean, it's just something that we got to deal with. So think back to February, March, when this thing first kind of started to explode and it became obvious that we were dealing with something that was pretty serious. What was the message to your team? I mean, because you guys are on the front line. I mean, you're dealing with it every day. What did you tell them to kind of bolster them and get them ready to face what they were going to face?
Well, I think we quickly came to the conclusion we really had 3 goals, and we tried to communicate these goals from the outset and then try to live by these goals. It was protect our patients, make sure we try to keep our patients safe, provide them safe and excellent care, keep our providers safe, make sure that they've got what they need, provide them communication, education, whatever it is. So we try to stay ahead of it because it was always a fluid, very fluid thing as to what the right precautions were, what the exposure time should be, a lot of just different things, but keeping them safe and then just communicating, trying to communicate. We would do a daily 4 o'clock huddle call just to talk about what had happened during that day, what we're seeing, what was going on. And, that was with leadership, and then the expectations that gets disseminated out to our team as well. So we already were doing an 8:30 huddle call every day, which we've always done, and then we added one late afternoon to try to get kind of feedback on where we were for the day and what we were seeing. So continuing to try to communicate, because there was a lot of talk about protective gear, make sure we got protective gear, communicate with our team about what we've got available, and we were fortunate to have a team that was able to access really what we needed, but also talking to people about being judicious about use and being responsible. And how we use the gear to make sure we have plenty, because he didn't know where it was going to end. Really, those were the things. I mean, just continuing to talk about keeping them safe, patients safe, communicating with our patients and their families, because the families couldn't come in.
Well, let me ask you about that, because I've got to think that was one of the toughest things. I would think it would be tough to have to tell someone who has someone that they love in the hospital that, I mean, I'm sorry, they could be dying, but you can't come in. That had to be.
Yeah, it was. I can remember just a very, very tough situation. Probably one of our first COVID patients that was passing away. And we were always very cautious. Once again, if you don't have providers to take care of patients, it can be very troublesome for the rest of the patients. So, you try to protect people that are in the hospital caring for patients, and that means limiting access from those from the outside that could, have the virus. We wanted this family to be close to their loved one before they passed away. So we've got the family bringing them in. We've got them decked out. They probably have the virus as well, but still trying to make them available for their family member. And one of the first ones we had, a very emotional situation. All that was very tough. And so we probably can always do a better job in those situations, but I think that, because there's more than one, but always trying to be sympathetic and empathetic to those families and supporting that team that's having to go through that as well, because it's tough for the team as well.
Yeah.
To lose anybody. It's a team effort and it's communication and trying to keep everybody on track.
Yeah, it's a balancing act too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's one of that's what being a leader is about. I mean, sometimes you got to make those tough decisions and do what ultimately
and you rationalize
is best
about trying to keep the team safe,
Right.
but also the team has to take care of these families and support these families, and they're important to that patient, so it helps with the healing as well. So fortunately, we've opened that up now. We've got visitors in, and so some of that we feel much better about, and we think it makes us better as an organization to have those families in there. And so we're very happy to be able to offer that now.
Yeah, agreed. All right, enough about COVID. I'm getting tired of talking about it.
I know, man, but it's always out there. But I always want to thank the team and recognize just the amazing group that we've got. You'd walk that floor on the COVID unit, and they'd have COVID patients everywhere, and they're all about business. It's all about what we're here for, and that's what we do. And I just can't say enough about them. So I appreciate you. Let me just throw that in.
No, I think that's key, is having a good team. So speaking of that, what makes in your mind, what makes a good team member at Thomas? I mean, what are the characteristics someone needs to have that you look for to bring in to be part of your team?
Well, I think on any team you got to have people with diverse ideas. It helps to have them think a little bit differently. It helps to be challenged. I feel very comfortable with that. Once you've been in a position long enough in a leadership role, you feel comfortable being challenged, and you shouldn't be compelled to always have the answer, because there's somebody out there that's doing it on the front line or has done it before that knows it much better than you, and that's who you need to rely on to provide those answers. So we've got a great group that very diverse. Our director of nursing, we've got a chief operating officer who's actually a pharmacist as well, who's got a great background, great imaging leader that runs imaging and cancer, who's been in sales but also is technically really good at what he does. So, just some different people, and I think just from a general leadership perspective, look for that diversity when you're putting a team together where people have different perspective on things.
And you make a good point. I mean, really, good leaders, in my opinion, in my experience, don't surround themselves with a bunch of yes men and yes women, right? I mean, because if that's all you're looking for, then you might as well be a dictator and forget the team. I mean,
you're wasting payroll. Yeah. You've already got all the ideas. You're just spinning your wheels. So
that's a great point.
No, I think that once again, I'm not here as an expert on leadership. I think leadership is always a work in progress. There's a lot of things you can always do better. Yeah. I always feel like there's things that I should be doing or need to be doing more of or whatever else. But I think just from experience, you got to have folks that are comfortable telling you what they think and have it build that environment where they feel comfortable telling you what they think. Yeah.
And it's okay to disagree, right? I mean, you and I can disagree and have a good working relationship and still part as friends or whatever. But sure. It's okay not to agree with everything that everybody else does or says. Yeah.
Right. No, absolutely.
What was your first job? You mentioned you've been working since you were about 12. What did you do when you were 12 years
old? It's funny. If anybody's from Fairhope, if anybody grew up in Fairhope, there was a gas station out here on Greeno Road on 98. Now it's a Shell station. Before that, it was an old 76 station. And so I worked there pumping gas. It was $1.50 an hour. I was 12 years old. And had some great friends. A guy named Teddy Faust.
Yeah.
Y'all know Teddy?
Oh, yeah.
Teddy was a year older than me, but he worked there with me. A guy named Blake Sullivan. His dad owned the place. And a couple other guys that were a little bit older than me. But it was a great experience. It was a place to meet people. It was called the Busy Bee was the name of the place. And it was a 76 station with curtains all around the windows. They sold beer inside the 76 station, so we'd serve beer and pump gas. At 12 years old, we may have sold more beer than gas.
I'm sure.
But it was a hot spot on the weekends. You had people watching football games, and anyway, maybe more than you want to hear. But
no, that's great.
It was a fun job.
$1.50 at 12 years old. That's not. I mean, it's not bad.
I thought I hit it. Yeah. I thought I hit it rich. 12-hour days, and you get $18 in a 12-hour day, and there wasn't a lot to spend it on. You walk uptown to there was a Hunter newsstand uptown up here, and I'd go up and get comic books or read a lot. And I think Page and Pal maybe just opened around that time, but I was a big reader, buy books, and probably the other job that was really really good experience was working. I worked with my uncle for about a year and a half at Terry Thompson Chevrolet. I sold cars in college, and that was a great experience working there. Just meeting people and seeing things from different people's perspective, and that was a really good experience as well.
That's great. Well, what about mentors or anyone who's had an impact on your leadership style or just you personally? Can you think of anybody in particular?
Well, I mean,
you can mention?
There's people I work with every day that report to me that are that impacted, that I see what they do and want to emulate that. So I like I said, I working with my uncle for that period of time. He's always been a great resource and a good friend. Terry Thompson's been really good. Maybe even working with Mr. Nix now at the infirmary. I've worked with him even before he's president, we worked together, and he's been a good resource as well and always available. But I mean, like I said, I've got a great team now that I learn from every day.
Yeah, that's great. One more, I guess, business question before we start talking about some fun stuff. So every great leader, in my opinion, is self-aware. They kind of know what their holes maybe are, where they need to improve upon. So what about you? Anything that you can think of that might be something that you need to
I always think it's a lot. I always think it's always, I feel like I never get to walk the halls as much as I used to and see people. COVID's made it difficult. We do town hall meetings and small group gatherings, things like that. I actually did some a few months ago when the numbers were down. But, try to get out and see people more. You just learn a lot just by walking around and listening to people. I really like to do more of that. I think that being able to read a little bit more as well. Just read, there's a lot out there keep up with from a healthcare perspective, and read more and stay current on some things. But there's always opportunity to improve.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned town hall meetings, and I know a lot of people have kind of gone to virtual Zoom type stuff. How has technology changed and impacted what you guys do over the past 29 years? And kind of in your role, has there been a major impact the last 20, 25 years?
From a management perspective, it's really been in the last year.
Okay.
The first 28 years, it was really about getting in front of people and talking to people and getting to know them. And last year, we kind of had to retract a little bit. And so we do some of the Zoom stuff. Like I said, I actually went back to in-person town halls 3 or 4 months ago when the numbers were down. Zoom's a great tool. I like it for meetings and things like that. I think that it ends up shortening meetings. I think people are less involved, which can be a problem as well.
Right.
I think there's some opportunities for improvement there. And I was reading some tips the other day on if you're on a Zoom meeting, stay off your phone. These little tips about try to interrupt, try to insert yourself in there, because you can end up getting kind of zoning out. So that's one of the challenges there. But we've had to do a lot of that with staff. We've done some videos that we've sent out. I've not done like Zoom town halls. I just don't find them as effective, and I don't know that people are going to listen if they don't have to listen to it. But I'd rather meet with them in person and go and do some things. So I think really that's been the real change has been in the last year or so.
If Zoom had a suggestion box, my one suggestion would be to not make the video off a option. I mean, because you have too. I mean, you sit there and you're talking to the screen with a bunch of black squares, and you're like, I know these people aren't listening to what I'm saying. Right. I mean, just at least give me the courtesy of letting me look at you to see if I can at least tell if you're trying to pretend to pay attention.
There ought to be an automatic video and an automatic mute, because nothing drives you crazier than somebody that's unmuted, that's talking in the background, especially a big one when you've got.
No doubt. Yeah. So always the same offenders, but
that's been an interesting change.
Anyway, well, I know that you and Carrie have running in common, because you were talking off mic about running, so which I don't really get, but whatever. Carrie knows that how I feel about her running. But so what else besides that do you do for fun? I mean, when you're not at the hospital, what do you do?
I really like spending time with my family. I've always valued that time, because there's a lot of hours committed to work, and even when you're off, you're really never off because it's 24/7.
Right.
Really spending time with the family. My wife and I will travel a little bit. We haven't traveled as much lately. But we live down on the bay in Daphne, and we'll spend time on the bay and walk quite a bit and run and do things like that. I'm a sports card collector from years and years ago. So if I really want to unwind, I'll pull all that stuff out and go through my books and just look at what I've got and price them or see what they're, just kind of dabble in that. But I've got tons of old sports cards, and they're all kept in these binders, real particular about how I keep those things. But I really enjoy that kind of a getaway. And music. One of the biggest crimes with COVID and outside of the illnesses people have experienced is you can't see any music anymore. We love going to see music, and we'd spend a lot of time doing that and do that as family as well. So I miss going to see music, and so listen to music as well. I
can work with all those. All right, let's go back to traveling. So what's the most memorable place you've been or trip you've taken that you can think of?
Memorable trip. God, I'm gonna give you 2 examples of a memorable trip.
Right.
I'm gonna give you my. This is like the typical Disney trip, where everybody's jazzed up for a week in Disney, and then by the time we leave, we can't stand to be around each other anymore.
Been there, done that, yeah.
Right. So that's a typical Disney trip. When we go to Disney a lot, we still love to go to Disney.
Okay.
But my son and I went to San Francisco. I had to go out, and I went out. I was actually going for a meeting, so I paid for him to go with me. He'd never been. He'd been in Atlanta, a few places, but never been anywhere like that. And just in awe. He was just in awe of the city and the sights and, the scenery, and we just had a fantastic time. So that was really one of my favorite trips. I keep reminisce about.
That's great.
Yeah.
And as far as the sports card collection, give me one or two that you're most proud of, or they're maybe the most rare.
So this is interesting too. I think I'm kind of a nerd about this stuff, but the sports card stuff's kind of gone through the roof for some reason since COVID. They're like prices are through the roof, and I really would never sell these things because I mean you can't replace them. Right. You know, like buying a house in downtown Fair. If you sell it, you can't go buy another. You spend a lot for. But have a Lou Alcindor rookie card. That's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar rookie card from '69.
Wow.
That I probably bought 5 years ago for $150 or something like that, and they're like $10,000, $12,000 card now.
Wow.
And so I've got some stuff like that, and I've got it all put up, and just always like to kind of go back and look at that stuff, and just interesting to me that from '69 this cardboard piece of paper, and it's graded and in a case, and all it's taken care of. But I just find that very interesting, and I've always been a big sports fan too, big Alabama fan.
Right.
So
I'm sorry.
Big sports fan in general. Right. Well, it could be worse.
You could be an Auburn fan. Yeah, you could be an Auburn. That's exactly right.
So
believe me, I know.
But anyway, that's just kind of a nerdy thing that I can get into those books and those cards and just it's kind of relaxing for me.
Yeah, that's great to have an escape like that. All right, last question, and I'll let you go. I know that you've got more important things to do. But so best concert or maybe a concert that
the easy one. We were talking about it last night. We were it was probably 3 years ago. We went to a music festival it was in New Orleans. Voodoo Fest is what it was. I don't know if y'all heard of Voodoo Fest. But this was the lineup. It was Third Eye Blind, it was Revivalist, Rainbow Kitten Surprise, and Mumford & Sons back to back, and it was a great day, and it was a lot of good music and beautiful weather.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So that was fun.
Well, I appreciate your time, and you've given some great insights on leadership, but I do want to ask you one question before I let you go. So long tenure at Thomas Hospital and with the infirmary system, and still I know have more time to go, but when your tenure is finally over, what do you want your legacy to be, or what do you want those that you've led to look back and say about Ormand's tenure
Lord.
there?
You always want to leave something better than you found it, and Thomas has always been a great place. That people felt like they could trust me, and that there was integrity, and they felt like they had a resource they needed. I mean, that'd really be it. I mean, it's I don't want to make more out of it than what it is either. It's a job that you try to do the best you can.
Understood. Nothing wrong with that. We will link your social media and websites and that kind of thing and show notes. And so, Ormand, thank you so much for joining us. This has been great.
Yeah, thank y'all, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate y'all doing this.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. It definitely helps us in the ratings, and it also makes it easier for other folks to find the podcast. And as always, a big thank you to producer and editor Carrie Wolf. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Aviso Group. If you want to know more about who we are and what we do, you can visit our website at avisogroup.com. That's AVIZO group.com. You can also check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for listening.